At 7:26 on July 30th, 1943, Staff Sergeant Michael Aruth locked himself into the tail gun position of the B-17 Tanlio, watching 18 Messerschmitt Bf-109s form up over Kassel. He was 21 years old. 13 combat missions. 0 kills. The Luftwaffe had committed everything they had left. 186 American bombers were headed for the Henschel Aircraft Works, and the German fighter controllers knew exactly where to strike. Tail sections. Low 6. Fast dives. 1 pass, 1 kill. The manuals told tail gunners to wait. Conserve ammunition. Hold fire. Let them come close. Michael Aruth had already decided he wouldn't. The 527th Bomb Squadron had lost 11 tail gunners in 3 weeks. Not wounded. Dead. German pilots had studied the American defensive pattern and learned it well. They waited for the tail gunner to hold fire. They closed to 300 yards. They dodged the first burst. Then the 20mm cannons shredded the tail. 11 telegrams. 11 families. Each one beginning with the same words. The Secretary of War regrets. Aruth had seen it happen himself on July 12th over Villacoublay. A B-17 2 ships over. Standard procedure. A Messerschmitt came in from 7 o'clock low. The tail gunner waited. The fighter closed to 400 yards. The gunner opened fire. The tracers walked behind the diving fighter. The German pilot adjusted. Closed to 200 yards. Fired once. For cannon shells erased the tail. No parachute. The night before Kassel, the flight engineer, Larry Redman, had said it out loud. They're patient, he told Aruth. They wait for you to do exactly what the book says. Aruth remembered his training instructor at Laredo demonstrating the twin. 50 caliber Brownings. Maximum effective range, 1,000 yards. Doctrine said fire at 600. Why waste ammunition? Save it for the kill zone. But Aruth had done the math. A Bf-109 closing on a B-17 did nearly 700 miles per hour relative speed. From 600 yards to impact, a tail gunner had just over 4 seconds. 1 burst. Maybe 40 rounds. 1 chance. German pilots knew this. So Aruth decided to break the pattern. He would fire first. At maximum range. Not to kill, but to disrupt. Force the fighter to break, to jink, to lose alignment. Ruin the attack before it ever reached the kill zone. His instructor would have failed him. His crew thought he was insane. The intercom crackled. Bandits inbound. High 6. Aruth rotated the turret. 3 Bf-109s rolled over in duff. Standard rear attack. Other tail gunners tracked them calmly, waiting for 600 yards. Aruth opened fire at 900. Tracers arced through open sky. The lead German pilot saw the fire early and snapped hard left. His wingmen scattered. The coordinated pass collapsed into chaos. No concentrated fire. No clean shot. But 5 more fighters immediately dove from 10 o'clock high. And Aruth had already burned through 150 rounds. The Kassel flak hadn't even started yet. The second wave came in fast. 800 yards. 750. His right gun clicked empty. German pilots knew this moment. Reloading meant 30 seconds of vulnerability. 30 seconds to die. The lead Messerschmitt lined up perfectly. Aruth grabbed the ammunition belt. His hands shook as he fed it through the receiver, locked the tray, slammed the cover. 10 seconds. The fighter closed to 600 yards. Aruth could see the pilot's face through the canopy. 12 seconds. And the fight was just beginning. The feed mechanism jammed. The ammunition belt twisted inside the housing. 500 yards. The Messerschmitt was already firing. Cannon flashes erupted from its wings. 20mm shells tore through the air. One punched through the vertical stabilizer less than 3 feet from Aruth's head. The tail shuddered violently. 15 seconds. Aruth ripped the belt free with both hands, cleared the twist, slammed it back into the feed tray, and yanked the charging handle. 400 yards. The gun swung onto target. Aruth opened fire. Both 50s roared in a full burst. Tracers stitched across the fighter's nose. Rounds ripped into the engine cowling. Smoke exploded from the Messerschmitt's left side. The German pilot broke hard right and dove away, trailing black smoke. Probably a kill. No time to watch. The remaining 4 fighters scattered. They had expected a helpless bomber during a reload. Instead, they'd met aggressive fire from a gunner who refused to wait his turn to die. But the Kassel mission wasn't over. 6 hours round trip. and German fighters always came back. The navigator's voice crackled through the intercom. IP in 2 minutes. Flag zone ahead. The formation tightened. 18 bombers locked into a defensive box. 54 aircraft from the 379th Bomb Group. Every gun manned. Every tail pointed outward. Every tail gunner had seen what Aruth did. Fire early. Disrupt the attack. Most still waited for 600 yards. Doctrine was doctrine. The flak started. Black bursts detonated at 17,000 feet. Shrapnel rattled against Tanlio's fuselage. The aircraft shook but held formation. Pilot John Fox kept it steady. Bombardier Bob Hedney lined up the Norden sight on the Henschel works below. Bombs away. The formation banked left. That was when the Luftwaffe hit them with everything. 23 fighters. Focke-Wulf 190, as in Messerschmitt 109s. They'd waited until the bombers were light. Faster, but more fragile. The attacks came from everywhere. High, low, level. 5 o'clock. 7 o'clock. Aruth rotated his turret and tracked a Focke-Wulf diving from 8 o'clock high at 1,000 yards. He opened fire. Long burst. The German pilot saw the tracers and rolled away. Attack disrupted, but not stopped. 3 more fighters punched through from 4 o'clock, targeting another B-17 in the box. That bomber's tail gunner waited. 600 yards. The Germans concentrated fire. The tail section disintegrated. The aircraft dropped out of formation, spinning. No parachutes. 10 men died in 3 seconds. The Focke-Wulf Aruth had driven off came back. This time dead astern. Low. Climbing toward Tanlio's belly, where the ball turret couldn't depress far enough. A smart pilot. Aruth tracked him. 900 yards. 850. He fired. The Focke-Wulf kept coming. 700 yards. Aruth walked his fire in. Rounds sparked off the fighter's armored windscreen. 600 yards. Both aircraft opened fire. 500 yards. Cannon shells tore into Tanlio's tail. One detonated 2 feet from Aruth's left leg. The blast slammed him into the turret frame. Shrapnel ripped through his thigh. Bone. Muscle. Arterial blood sprayed across the plexiglass. His oxygen lines severed with a violent hiss. 17,000 feet. 3 minutes to hypoxia. 6 minutes to unconsciousness. 8 minutes to death. His left gun mount was gone. Twisted metal, useless. The intercom went dead. Electrical failure. No contact with the crew. Aruth was alone in the tail. Bleeding. Suffocating. 1 gun left. The Focke-Wulf rolled away, setting up for another pass. Then 2 Messerschmitts dove from high 6. They'd seen the damage. A wounded tail gunner. Perfect prey. Aruth reached for the emergency oxygen bottle clipped to the bulkhead 3 feet away. Pain exploded through his leg. A shattered femur ground against itself. He couldn't reach far enough. The bottle stayed clipped. His vision narrowed. Hypoxia closed in. 90 seconds without oxygen at altitude. The Messerschmitts closed. 800 yards. 750. Doctrine said bail out. Wounded gunner. 1 gun. No oxygen. No one would blame him. But if he left his position, Tanlio's tail would be naked. And German fighters would finish the job. 9 men aboard Tondaleo. 9 families who would receive telegrams if he failed. At 700 yards, the lead Messerschmitt lined up its run. Michael Aruth forced his hands back onto the gun controls, muscle memory overriding panic. His vision was already dimming at the edges. Oxygen starvation creeping in fast at 17,000 feet. He tracked the fighter. 650 yards. He fired. Tracer rounds reached out through the thin air, stitching across the German fighter's left wing. The fuel tank ruptured. Flame blossomed instantly, bright and violent. The Messerschmitt rolled inverted and spiraled away, burning as it fell. Confirmed kill. Aruth's first. His vision turned gray. The second Bf-109 kept coming. Aruth tried to swing the guns, but his hands didn't respond the way they should have. Fingers numb. Coordination breaking down. The fighter closed to 500 yards. His remaining gun clicked empty. The German pilot saw it instantly, the silence from the tail. He held his approach, steady and confident, closing for the kill. 400 yards. Aruth grabbed the ammunition belt with hands that barely worked. Tried to feed it into the housing. His vision collapsed into a narrow tunnel, black creeping in from all sides. The belt slipped from his fingers and dropped. He snatched it again, forced it into place, slammed the charging handle. 300 yards. The Messerschmitt's cannons flashed. Tracer fire walked up the bomber's fuselage toward the tail. Aruth swung the gun and squeezed the trigger. Nothing. The gun jammed. A round stuck in the chamber. A standard failure. 30 seconds to clear under ideal conditions. Aruth had maybe 15 seconds of consciousness left. 200 yards. He yanked the charging handle back and reached into the feed tray. Blood from his shattered leg made his hands slick. The stuck round wouldn't budge. 10 seconds. The German fighter closed to 150 yards. Cannon shells tore through the horizontal stabilizer, ripping metal apart behind him. Aruth tore the round free. Slammed the handle forward. 100 yards. The Messerschmitt filled his gun sight. He fired. Both aircraft were shooting now, converging at lethal speed. Aruth's burst smashed into the German cockpit. The canopy shattered. The pilot vanished behind exploding glass and metal. The fighter snap-rolled left and fell away. Second kill. Aruth's world went black. He collapsed against the gun mount. When he came back, 30 seconds, maybe 3 minutes later, time meant nothing. His leg was still bleeding. The gun barrels were still hot. And 6 more German fighters were forming up for another pass. Up front, pilot Don Fox threw Tondaleo into a violent corkscrew. Left roll, dive. Right roll, climb. The standard evasive maneuver against concentrated fighter attack. The aircraft slammed Aruth against the turret walls. His helmet cracked against metal, the impact shocking him awake. Vision still gray. Lungs burning. Conscious, barely. The Messerschmitts circled like sharks. They could see the damage now. Shredded stabilizer, smoke trailing from the fuselage. A wounded bomber. An easy kill. The intercom was dead. Aruth couldn't tell Fox he was alive. Couldn't coordinate with the other gunners. He was alone. The aircraft corkscrewed again. Up front, the maneuver was so violent that Bombardier Bob Hedney thought the cockpit had been hit. He grabbed his parachute and bailed out through the nose hatch. Navigator Elmer Bendiner watched him go, preparing to follow. In the tail, Aruth had no idea. He rotated the turret and tracked the fighters regrouping below. 3 aircraft. Textbook Luftwaffe 3-ship element. They were coming from 7 o'clock low, all at once, concentrating fire on the shattered tail to finish the bomber. Aruth had maybe 90 seconds of useful consciousness left. Hypoxia was winning. Vision darkening. Fingers numb. But the gun still worked. 1 ammunition belt remained. 400 rounds. The 3 Messerschmitts dove. Aruth picked the leader. 800 yards. He opened fire. Aruth fired a long burst, walking tracers onto the lead fighter. The German pilot saw the fire early and broke formation, rolling hard away. The attack shattered, but his 2 wing men kept coming. 700 yards. Aruth shifted his aim to the second aircraft and fired again. The Messerschmitt snapped into a defensive roll, unhit but rattled. He'd seen what happened to pilots who ignored that tail gun. Now only 1 fighter remained committed. 600 yards. The lone Bf-109 dove straight at Tondaleo, aggressive and determined. Brave or foolish, there was no difference at this range. Aruth tracked him steadily, forcing his hands to obey. 550 yards. He opened fire. The German pilot flew directly through the stream of tracers. Rounds ripped into the left wing root. Fuel ignited instantly. The fighter cartwheeled, broke apart, and vanished in a cloud of fire and debris. Third kill. Then the gun went silent. The belt was empty. No ammunition left. Aruth was defenseless. The 2 remaining Messerschmitts saw it immediately. They reformed without hesitation, diving together in a classic bracket attack. 1 from 7 o'clock, 1 from 5, converging on the shattered tail from both sides. Aruth couldn't have engaged both even with ammunition. Now he had nothing. His vision collapsed to a pinpoint. Hypoxia closed in fast. Heart rate slowing. Brain starving. He was dying in the tail of a dying bomber over Germany. Up front, Don Fox leveled the aircraft. The violent corkscrews had driven off most attackers, but these 2 stayed with them. The crew believed the tail gunner was dead. Ball turret gunner Walt Gray tried to depress his guns to cover the rear approach. Couldn't get the angle. Radio operator Fred Reinhardt fired his single. 50 from the dorsal position. Too far, ineffective. 400 yards. Both German fighters opened fire. Cannon rounds tore into Tondaleo's fuselage. Shrapnel ripped into waist gunner John Leary's shoulder, dropping him where he stood. Harry Edwards kept firing, but the fighters were too fast, too close. 300 yards. The Germans pressed the attack. They knew the tail was finished. One more pass would end it. A Ruth slumped in the turret. No ammunition. No oxygen. A shattered leg. Vision almost gone. 200 yards. This was how it ended. 21 years old. 3 kills. Dead over Germany. Then everything changed. 3 other B-17s in the formation. Aircraft Ruth couldn't even see through his fading vision. Suddenly opened fire. Not at 600 yards. At 800. 900. Aggressive. Early. Maximum range. Their tail gunners had watched Ruth fight for 20 minutes. Watched him disrupt attack after attack with long-range fire. Watched him survive when doctrine said he should already be dead. And they abandoned the manual. 3 tail positions. 6. 50 caliber guns. Over 1,800 rounds per minute. The Messerschmitts flew straight into a wall of tracers. One fighter took hits through the engine. Smoke poured out as it broke away, trailing fire. The second pilot saw his wingman hit and lost his nerve. He rolled away and disengaged. The attack collapsed. Tondeleau lived. Not because of Ruth, he was unconscious, but because 3 gunners broke doctrine and copied his madness. Fire early. Disrupt the attack. Force the enemy to react. Flight engineer Larry Reedman finally reached the tail. He found Ruth collapsed, blue-faced, not breathing. Reedman ripped the emergency oxygen bottle free and jammed the mask onto his face. Pure oxygen at 17,000 feet. Ruth's chest convulsed. He gasped. His eyes opened, gray vision slowly bleeding back into color. Reedman cinched a tourniquet around the shattered thigh. The bleeding slowed. "You crazy son of a bitch," Reedman said into the intercom. "You got 4 of them. 4 kills. 1 mission. The highest single mission tally for any B-17 tail gunner in the 8th Air Force to that point. July 30th, 1943. A record that would echo through tail gunner-ready rooms across England. Ruth never heard it. He drifted in and out of consciousness, vision fading and returning, brain struggling to recover from oxygen starvation as Tondeleau limped for home. Fox flew Tondeleau home on 3 engines. The 4th had taken flak damage over the target, oil pressure unstable, running hot. Navigator Elmer Bendiner, who minutes earlier had been preparing to bail out, plotted a course west, 260 miles across occupied Germany, then the Channel, then England. No deviations, no loitering. Every minute over enemy territory was borrowed time. German fighters followed them for nearly 50 miles. They didn't commit at first. They probed the formation, testing for weakness, looking for stragglers, wounded bombers lagging behind, isolated tails without teeth. But every time a fighter edged closer, tail gunners across the 379th opened fire at maximum range. 800 yards. 900. Aggressive. Immediate. The Luftwaffe pilots had never seen this. American gunners weren't waiting anymore. They weren't letting attacks mature. They were forcing reactions before the Germans could stabilize their aim. Every approach dissolved into evasive breaks. Every coordinated pass fell apart. The Germans disengaged. By the time Tondeleau crossed the Channel, 7 tail gunners in the squadron had adopted Ruth's tactic. Not officially, not by order, but because it worked. In a combat zone, word travels faster than paperwork. What works lives? What doesn't kills? Tondeleau touched down at Kimbolton at 1,432 hours, 5 hours and 6 minutes after takeoff. Ruth was unconscious again when they pulled him from the tail. Medics lifted him onto a stretcher and rushed him to the base hospital. The doctor was blunt. Shattered femur. Nerve damage. Hypoxia-induced brain trauma. You'll never fly again. 3 weeks minimum in hospital. 6 weeks recovery if he was lucky. Medical discharge likely. Ruth was walking in 5 days. Not well. Limping. Leaning on a cane fashioned from a salvaged radio antenna. His left leg barely obeyed him, but it moved. Navigator Bendiner visited him on the 6th day. Found Ruth in the corridor, practicing. Step. Stop. Step again. You're supposed to be in bed, Bendiner said. I'm supposed to be in a tail turret, Ruth replied. The Distinguished Service Cross citation came through on September 10th, signed by Lieutenant General Ira Eaker. It detailed 4 confirmed kills over Kassel, fighting while wounded, without oxygen, with 1 operational gun. Extraordinary hero matters. Complete disregard for personal safety. What it didn't mention was what followed. Ruth's tactic spread. By August 15th, 42 tail gunners in the 379th were firing at maximum range. Not authorized, not doctrinal, but effective. The numbers told the truth. Before Castle, 6 tail gunners lost per month. After Castle, 2. Same missions, same enemy, different tactics. Word reached the 91st, the 306th, the 303rd. Tail gunners talked in mess halls, ready rooms, flak houses where men tried to sleep off fear. They all heard about the kid from the 527th who shot down 4 fighters while suffocating. Some tried it, some didn't. The ones who tried it survived more often. On August 23rd, Aruth discharged himself from the hospital against medical advice. His leg wasn't healed. The doctor warned him he'd risk permanent damage. He didn't care. His crew was flying without a dedicated tail gunner. Substitutes rotating through, none of them good. Fox requested his return officially. The request was denied. Medically unfit. Aruth showed up anyway. August 25th, mission to Paris. Target, German aircraft facilities at Villacoublay. Aruth climbed into Tondeleo's tail, legs screaming, using the cane to wedge himself through the cramped opening. Fox saw him through the cockpit window, shook his head, smiled. Good to have you back, Mike. The Paris mission went smooth. Light opposition. Aruth scored 1 probable, a Bf-109 that broke away trailing smoke. Not every victory ends in flames. Some victories are simply coming home alive. There was no confirmation. The German pilot had taken hits, smoke, evasive brake, loss of position, but no wreckage, no shoot. In the 8th Air Force, that meant probable. Aruth logged it without comment. After landing, 3 tail gunners from other crews approached him. They were young, new replacements, fresh from stateside gunnery schools where instructors still preached defensive doctrine and ammunition conservation. They'd heard the stories. For kills, no oxygen, 1 gun. They wanted to learn. That night, Aruth climbed back into the tail section of a grounded B-17 and taught them where doctrine failed. He didn't lecture. He demonstrated. Let at maximum range. Fire early. Don't wait for permission to live. Force the German pilot to react, he said. If he's reacting, he's not aiming. One of the gunners quoted the manual. 600 yards. Save ammunition. Wait for the kill zone. Aruth shook his head. The manual was written by men who never met a Focke-Wulf. Then he said the line that spread through the 379th faster than any order ever could. Fire at 900. You'll live longer. Over the next 2 weeks, Aruth trained 11 tail gunners. Informal sessions. No paperwork. No authorization. Just one combat veteran passing hard-earned knowledge to men whose life expectancy, statistically, was 6 missions. The 11 gunners Aruth trained averaged 14. Some rotated home. Some were wounded. None were killed in the tail. On September 6th, Tondeleau was assigned Stuttgart. Deep penetration. 500 miles into Germany. Heavy opposition expected. Intelligence reported increased Luftwaffe activity along the route. The briefing started at 0400. Fox laid out the plan. Target details. Flak concentrations. Fighter threat. Emergency procedures. No one said much. As they walked to the aircraft in the pre-dawn darkness, Flight Engineer Larry Reedman said what everyone was thinking. This one's going to be rough. Stuttgart was 7 hours round trip. Maximum fuel. No margin. 21 bombers from the 379th, part of a 338 aircraft strike against ball-bearing factories. Aruth settled into the tail. His leg throbbed. The wound from Castle had never healed properly, and probably never would. But the guns were operational. Ammunition belts loaded. That was enough. They crossed the English coast at 0703. The channel below, gray water, white caps. Beyond it, occupied Europe. Beyond that, the killing zone. German fighters hit them over France. Focke-Wulf 190s from JG-26. Fresh pilots. Aggressive. Faster closure. Less time in the American kill zone. They'd adapted. Aruth tracked one diving from 8 o'clock high. 1,000 yards. He opened fire. Long burst. Tracers arcing through thin air. The German pilot snap-rolled, evaded, then kept coming. 700 yards. Aruth fired again. Walked the tracers. The 190 took hits on the left wing, but held course. 600 yards. This pilot was experienced. He understood that American gunners fired early now. He flew through it. 500 yards. both aircraft firing. 20mm shells stitched toward Tondeleo's tail. Aruth held his aim. Steady. Calm. 400 yards. His tracers found the engine cowling. Smoke erupted. The Focke-Wulf broke away. Probable. It was Aruth's fifth, but there was no time to count. More than 20 fighters were now attacking the formation. Tracers crossed the sky. Aircraft burned. 2 B-17s from the 306th fell out of formation. One exploded outright. The other spiraled down, trailing fire. Parachutes appeared. Not enough. Stuttgart's flak was the worst Aruth had ever seen. Black bursts at 18,000 feet. Dense enough that bombers flew through walls of steel. Tondileo shuddered with near misses. Shrapnel rattled through the fuselage. Hedney released the bombs. Bombs away. Then the Messerschmitt 110s arrived. Twin-engine heavies armed with 21-centimeter rockets. Standoff weapons. Fired from beyond gun range. The rockets weren't precise. They didn't have to be. One hit a B-17 from the 91st. The bomber disintegrated instantly. Aruth fired, but the 110 stayed outside effective range. Smart. Cautious. The Luftwaffe was learning. Maximum range disruption worked against gun attacks. It didn't stop rockets. The formation turned for home. Damaged, bleeding, for bombers gone. And the fight wasn't over yet. German fighters stayed with them. Not committing. Not breaking off. Testing. Probing for weakness. Tondileo wasn't a straggler yet. 3 engines still turning, position held, but fuel was critical. Fox ran the numbers again and again. Distance to Kimbolton. Airspeed. Burn rate. The margins were razor thin. Then the number 3 engine oil pressure began to fall. 200 pounds per square inch. 150. 100. Shrapnel damage from Stuttgart. A slow leak turning catastrophic. Fox shut it down and feathered the propeller. Tondileo dropped out of formation. 2 engines now. She couldn't maintain altitude. Couldn't hold speed. Couldn't stay under the guns of the box. They were alone. 6 Messerschmitt 109 saw it instantly. They turned together, tightening the circle, setting up for a coordinated kill. Aruth rotated his turret. His hands were steady. His breathing controlled. He'd done this before. Castle had taught him what panic cost. 900 yards. He opened fire. The first 109 flew into his tracers. At 700 yards, the cockpit vanished in fragments. The fighter rolled inverted and fell away. Confirmed. 30 seconds later, another. Engine hits. Fire. The aircraft spiraled down. 7th kill. But Tondileo was still losing altitude. Fuel streamed from a ruptured wing tank. Fox made the call. We're ditching in the channel. That's it. They crossed the French coast at 8,000 feet. The German fighters turned back. Fuel low. Mission complete. Tondileo kept flying. Fox radioed air-sea rescue. 3,000 feet over gray water. He cut power and brought her in. 120 miles per hour. The impact was brutal. The fuselage buckled. Water surged through the nose. The tail section partially tore away. Aruth's head slammed into the gun mount. Skull fracture. Instant concussion. He was unconscious when the crew dragged him from the sinking tail. All 10 men survived. Rescue launch HSL 180 reached them 40 minutes later. Tondileo sank 2 minutes after the last man cleared the wreckage. Aruth woke 3 days later in a British hospital. Severe concussion. Cranial fracture. Medical board decision was immediate and final. Grounded permanently. September 15, 1943. 14 missions. 17 confirmed kills. The highest tally of any bomber gunner in U.S. Army Air Force's history. But the kills weren't the legacy. The tactics were. By October, 60% of tail gunners in the 8th Air Force were firing at maximum range. By December, it was doctrine. Tail gunner casualties dropped 38% in the final quarter of 1943. Same missions. Same enemy. Different survival rate. The 11 gunners Aruth personally trained averaged 14 missions instead of 6. Hundreds of men lived because one 21-year-old decided the manual was wrong. Aruth received the Distinguished Service Cross, the Distinguished Flying Cross, 2 Air Medals, and the Purple Heart. He remained in service until 1962. He trained gunners, taught tactics, never sought attention. In 1958, he served as a pallbearer for the tomb of the unknown soldier. He died in February 1990, age 70. His obituary mentioned the 17 kills. It didn't mention the hundreds of tail gunners who made it home because he fired first. Aruth never called himself a hero. He called himself a survivor. The men he trained called him the reason they lived.